Roger, you don't last 24 years without becoming a mentor to young guys while you're still playing. And you fast forward to where the game is now, and you mentioned a couple minutes ago talking with Smoltz, and you were talking to us before we came on. It used to be five and dive was a bad thing, right? Now you're happy you get five out of a guy, right? You get 5 innings. That's almost a quality start in today's
Yeah.
baseball. What do you say? You can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? You can't just tomorrow say you guys got to start going 7 innings. But what do you say to pitchers now? Young guys, young pros, minor leaguers, maybe guys you've talked to when you're around Cody on his teams. What do you say to young pitchers now about trying to go a little deeper, trying to maximize? Like you said, they're going to throw their 100, but how do you get 5 or 6 out of that 100 instead of 3 2/3 or 4? What do you say to those guys?
Well, it's something I think, like you said, starts in the minor leagues. And I was getting on a few of the guys in spring training because they would throw their 3 innings and they would go inside into the fitness room and get on a bicycle for 8 minutes. And that's, for me, what kept my shoulder and even if I had a little heavy shoulder, I needed to get some blood through that body. We were doing 2 miles in under 15 minutes or under for 2 miles, 3 miles, 21 minutes or under. And when you run your first mile fairly slow, you really get after the next 2 miles. I mean, and it flushed your body out. And that's just the way, when I watched Tom Seaver and Nolan Ryan and guys like that running poles in the heat in the outfield. Um, I was able to play 24 years because of my distance running, my core work in between starts. I was probably doing close to 300, 320 abs in between starts and long toss. Long toss, why these kids are chasing velo all the time and they're throwing these mush balls into walls from 5 feet as hard as they can, and it reads 97 and they top out and they go crazy. I just hit 97. But I tell them that obviously velocity, as you guys know, you've heard it, and it holds true. I mean, velocity is really the last thing. It's great that if you throw 95, but pitching is like buying property, location, 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 right? And a little movement. Again, when I talk with somebody like Pedro was a little in stature. He had a good fastball, but he had movement. And it's similar to when I talk about Nolan Ryan, when Nolan had all those no hitters, it wasn't because he was throwing 98 miles an hour. He had that Bugs Bunny curveball going. And I'd like to see the spin rate these days on Nolan Ryan curveball. And same thing with Pedro that made him dangerous was he had a changeup that he could throw anytime. And that's what I tell the young hitters, even my sons. I said, you've seen everything. You've seen 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. You've seen sinkers at 97. You've seen wipeout sliders. I said, the only thing you're going to see when you get to the big leagues is a number one or number two on a staff. He's going to have a changeup or a split that he can throw at any time, anywhere in the zone that he wants. And that's the only thing that's going to, to affect you, that these guys can get behind in the count and throw these pitches. The ones that can't get beat around. I said, but you make your living off the number 3, 4, and 5 starter. You're 1 and 2. If you get 1 or 2 hits off me or Pedro, you're ahead of the game. So going all the way back to, it wasn't too long ago. Charles Barkley and John Smoltz and I were in Birmingham, and we gave Dr. James Andrews a Lifetime Achievement Award. And at that time, Doc was saying that he's never done more Tommy John surgeries on 15-year-olds than ever. And again, I just try and encourage the guys to get out and hit the pavement when they're done running, when they can. Obviously, when you get to All-Star break and you get to 40 years old, like a Verlander, you're going to taper your stuff. I got into a swimming pool more often than I did hitting the pavement in July and August in the heat. And but it's long tosses for me. It's a way to keep. It's not the crazy long toss. It's just a good long toss program that you do in between starts. And yeah, I mean, I talk to the kids. One of my biggest deals was when I tell them when I got to the 7th inning and Bill Fisher or Mel Stoudemire, any of my pitching coaches, Jim Hickey, they would hear me grunting in the 7th. They knew I was getting to the end of my rope, if you will. And when I would come in the dugout, they were like, where we at? Where we at? And I go, all right, let's do our little deal where you let me start eating outs. So now I go back out to warm up in the 8th. I know that if this guy gets on, I'm out of there. Walk, hit, whatever. So my 8 warm-up pitches are a little more intense. Now I get an out, get a fly ball, get a ground ball. Now that much closer to the best reliever in the history of the game coming in to shut the game down for me. So I'm trying to eat out, so I have incentives to do that. And April, May in Boston, New York, September, October, Boston, New York, the weather's cool. That's a blessing for any type of power pitcher. And my legs never got tired. And even at 42, 43 years of age, my legs were underneath me. And those are your bread and butter. So I'll tell you this, guys. The is it Mason? Who's the reliever for Oakland right now?
Mason Miller. Mason Miller.
Thank you.
Miller.
Yeah.
Watch this kid. I don't know if they're going to trade him for 5 guys or whatever. It's probably the best arm I've seen in the last 20 years. This guy's mechanics are unbelievable. He throws 102, 103. Looks like he could throw to 108. And he doesn't fall off to the first base side when he whips it in there with his legs. He kind of goes. His directional is really good. Wipeout slider. Yeah, he throws 100, but his mechanics are just perfect. I mean, if anybody wants to watch video and get out of this chase and velocity stuff, look at his mechanics. Even if you tap out at 92 miles an hour, anything 90 or above, you're a power pitcher. And that's why I try and tell guys, we pitch. I was afforded the luxury in Boston. It was a huge blessing. We traded for Tom Seaver. For me, the ultimate power pitcher. I'm watching a 40-year-old man out there. I don't know what my age is, 23, 24, 25, whatever it was. And I'm watching Seaver out there. Tom Terrific's out there on the mound, and he's grunting in there. He's 88, 89 miles an hour maybe. Next thing you know, he gets second and third. Boom, 93, punch out. 94 on the other corner, punch out. I go, okay. I see what's going on. And so I was, like I said, even when I don't have my best stuff, my plus fastball, you're a power pitcher. You know how to you can get outs. So
well, that's really
again,
interesting. That's super interesting that you raised that, because like one of the things that I've been fascinated with, like the prototypical power pitchers, whether you, Verlander, others, Seaver, there was this notion that you would kind of work at one level during the game, right? Like as you begin the game, you're coming out like, let's say, low 90s, mid 90s, and then you're saving something when you're emptying the tank. That was your phrase, emptying the tank, when you would get into the late innings, so that when you're talking about third, fourth times through the order, that changes the look when all of a sudden you are throwing harder instead of losing velo as the game gets along. So, but that kind of raises a question that I'm interested in, which is, as the game has evolved, like you're seeing more max effort from pitch 1 to pitch 85 or 100, wherever the finish line is for guys now. You can chuckle if you want. So
I am.
yeah. We're at the 50th anniversary of Nolan Ryan throwing 235 pitches against Louis Tiant. Is your concern with, do you think that injuries in the game are a reflection of max effort every pitch? Do you think it's spin? What do you think is leading to is it lack of leg work? What do you think is driving the wealth of injuries that we see in the game at this point?
I think you touched on it all. I think it's your lower half guys, their leg work. When we talked about their conditioning, when you're chasing velocity that hard, you really have to concentrate on the pitcher's throwing program deals. I carry 3-pound cuff weights with me to play in the main golf event next week. I do them every day. I'm always worried about having a frozen shoulder. I'm still able to throw batting practice from 50 feet to give the guys a real look. Like I said, Dr. Andrews giving me a checkup every 5 years on my body and my shoulder to make sure. And he said there's a direct reason, because you're so religious with he goes, I see a lot of guys, obviously younger than I am, and they pitched in the big leagues and they cannot move their shoulder. They just, because they stopped moving. I think guys are throwing so hard. I tease the relievers. I get it with the relievers. The relievers are coming in for 3 outs, possibly 20 pitches. Some of them, their mechanics look like a blender with the lid off of it. And, they're just coming at you with elbows and backsides and legs and knees. And so I get it. Those guys are going to But if they start chasing velocity, like I said, that you start missing in the middle of the plate. Guys in the big leagues can put wood on a bullet. They love that gas, and if you miss in the middle, you're in trouble. So you still gotta pitch a little bit, but yeah, I don't know if a lot of guys don't ice anymore. I tell them when you're icing your elbow, it's only about 8 minutes because you got that nerve there. Your shoulder, you can ice for longer, and but it always got inflammation out of my elbow and shoulder to get me ready for 4 days later or whatever it might have been. So, we talk about a lot of things with those guys. I come out of the bullpen, and if I'm on, I'm going with my fastball, maybe a little bit of a curveball or split here or there. But I didn't start breaking out my other stuff till the second time through the lineup, unless they forced me to change early, or I wasn't really crisp with what I had. I'm attacking, and nowadays you see everybody use 5 pitches on the first hitter of the game. You see all their pitches in the first hitter of the game, and next thing you know, 4 innings, they're at 102 pitches and got to come out of the game.